Hello, everybody. My name is Edward S. Redcar, and I'm the host of Edward S. Redcar's Entertainer Chat. And today I have the awesome pleasure of talking with Jesse Dorian. He's a filmmaker, a writer of all different kind of scripts and stories. And I had him previously on an on-the-fly version at the North Film Festival in Stockholm, Sweden this past January. So we had such a good time there that I wanted to know a little bit more or a lot more about him. So he graciously accepted the invitation to be on my show today. So I'll say to you, Jesse, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
I'm all right. We finally got it working. So
Right, technology did not win this time, right?
it did in the sense of taking time away, but
Right. Yeah. Well, it's stubborn sometimes, but we got to keep at it. And we can't let the machines beat the humans, something like that. But yeah, welcome to the show, and yeah, I'm glad you could make it today. And just like I do with a lot of my guests, or all of my guests, I should say, that come on my show. Like to know a little bit more about them, how they started, what they're doing, what's, in store down the road for them. So, I'll pose the same question to you. You do so many things: writing, producing, acting, directing, even being a vocalist that I've seen there on some of your social media. So, how did you become interested in all those, writing, producing, acting, directing, being a vocalist? And I found that very interesting. So, what got you first interested in all those things?
well, where to start because there's probably a different backstory to everything. I mean, I guess I'd start with. I mean, as long as I can remember, I wanted to act. That came first, and so of course I didn't pursue it because that's what. No, I mean, I think the thing that came the most natural was writing. I was an avid reader I was an advanced reader as a kid, and it's kind of amazing I had time for anything else. I feel like I read so many books, but I also watched a lot of movies. But I did have friends too, so I don't know how. I think I was better at time management when I was 7 or 8 years old than I am now. Um,
We
seems like
all
I got
are. We all are. When we get older, we're always better at time management when we're younger than when we're older.
yeah. So acting was the thing that I would have. I mean, that I wanted to do for as long as I could remember. But I had a lot of self-esteem issues as a kid, and actually still have them now as an adult. So it's like I know I could be good at that, but I don't, either don't take myself seriously enough, or I don't take the path there seriously, or
Mhm.
I get distracted with something else. I am ADD, ADHD, so it's
Oh,
uh,
okay.
diagnosed till late in life, and it could have saved a lot of years probably of being so
Uh-huh.
aimless.
Yeah.
That diagnosed a lot sooner.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
and so yeah, like acting was like the number one, and the thing that I would have been happiest doing. But writing was just kind of like it came like natural, and so I started maybe trying to write a novel because I used to read a lot of books. I used to read a lot of advanced like adult fare like Stephen King, Michael Crichton,
Hmm.
and so I from an early age was always interested in science fiction and horror, and then that's something that I started working. I couldn't really figure out my voice as writing in like the novel format or format of like a long form paperback novel, but uh,
Right.
I was such a huge fan of movies as a kid, and I watched so many movies. And for some reason, the screenplay format just made the most. It wasn't overly indulgent. It
Hmm.
didn't take much of other people's time if you were to ask them to read it back
Hmm.
then. Because I wrote my first script when I was 14, and
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
writing it when I was 14. I finished it when I was maybe 15, and
Okay. Okay.
that was like 200 pages or
Well,
something.
that's quite a bit of pages for someone that young, sure, to sit down there and for that young of an age to have that much concentration to put all that down like in 200 pages. Hard enough for an adult, but I mean, for someone that young, that's quite an amazing feat there. To
Uh, yeah, so that's 20 years ago that I
Okay.
did that. So I've had a lot of time to kind of work at it, um, and I would start a lot of projects and I wouldn't finish them, and I think but at least I got to finish one when I was 15, so I could at least kind of know what that was like, and then it wasn't as big a deal if I didn't finish something I started, because I knew I was capable of finishing what I start. It's just
Right,
if
right, right, right,
I
right.
know I'm capable of doing it.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And as far as producing and directing, I think those just kind of happen to go with your ability to have a vision and wanting to see that vision, see it through, and
Mm-hmm,
if you genuinely believe something needs to be portrayed or presented in a certain way.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that's, even though as I got older, I realized I was less passionate about directing. It's something that I can do, but I don't prefer it. It's, I think there's some like out of the screenplays that I have, that have been getting recognition. There's one or two of them I could direct under protest, but I'd rather find someone else to do it.
Right.
And then I kind of don't want anything. I go, that's kind of a little too big for me for
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah, and
you're gravitating, or you gravitated like to the screenplay part. So, I mean, uh, when you're director, you have to be to a certain extent creatives, because you have to have like a vision of what you want the story to be, or how it is to be told. I mean, in what way. I mean, that's like a creative process in itself by being able to give suggestions to the actors of how you want them to might maybe play it this way or that way. But the screen, I mean, being a screenwriter, I mean, that's sort of like the essence of creativity, right? I mean, that's probably why that's where your passion is, because it's like sort of the basis of the creative process, right?
the ability to tell a story,
Mm-hmm.
and it less concern about how original it is and more how it's told. I'm sure every other high profile director says that, or writer director
Uh-huh.
says
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So
they say
yeah.
told.
So you were mentioning there that growing up you had ADHD, and I don't
But
know.
yeah,
Uh,
I didn't know. I was undiagnosed, and
oh, okay, okay. But when you finally when it was finally found out that that's what the root of the situation was, do you think that uh, developing your writing and screenwriting, do you think that helped you to get out of that state, the ADHD? Do you think it kind of helped you to bring you out of that?
a lot of adults, it's not prominent until they become adults, and I was able to, like, when I was in elementary school, when I was probably second to third, fourth grade, I was a straight A student, A and B student.
Oh,
But then as I
great.
yeah, but as I started getting older in the fifth and sixth, like middle school, my grades started getting worse, and then I was probably in the bottom quarter of my class in my senior year in high school. But it's just because I didn't get it at that point anymore. But I still had ambitions, and I was still determined. I was very creative, and so uh, like my attention span was still there, but only for things I wanted to do. If it wasn't something I wasn't passionate about, then I had no attention span for it, and that's why it's like it would have been different had I been diagnosed, because I did have it, but it didn't become apparent for some reason it was always under the radar, and I didn't know. You know,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
and well into my 20s, and I didn't even get diagnosed properly until I turned 30,
Wow.
and
Wow. Wow.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so a
Yeah.
lot, very dark period in my 20s. I'll just put it that way.
Oh,
And
I can understand that. Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because
um,
constantly trying to constantly trying to figure out what's going on and not really officially knowing that. I can see where that can be, quite a challenge and quite frustrating, and wanting to achieve like goals that you set for yourself, and maybe seeing that as sort of like a delay or a stumbling block. I mean, you'll get there, but kind of
right,
frustrating that, yeah, you have to work around that. Yeah. Um,
yeah,
uh,
but like I didn't like I was able to do a lot of things in high school, like that involved filmmaking
mhm,
or
mhm.
that involved writing. But like there was no room, no attention span left for things that I wasn't interested in, like math and history and science. That didn't mean I was bad at those things. I just didn't care enough to perform well. I didn't try, and
Right, right,
and found out later when I could have when I was properly medicated. There were things that I was actually good at the whole time that I was completely oblivious to. Like and
right, right, right.
uh,
You had the cloud of ADHD over you that kind of overshadowed everything, and kind of kind of sequestered all of those interests, and only allowed
my
only allowed so many to pass through the filter, if that's kind of a correct assimilation to make, between the two. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in this, in life. I mean, not only dealing with situations like you did, ADHD. There's a lot of people that sometimes they go through life undiagnosed with like physical ailments. Like I know I have a cousin of mine that she always wondered why, say, like in high school, if you go to like a gym class, and a lot of times, well, this was years ago, she would always wonder why maybe she didn't have enough stamina to play like girls basketball, or like tennis or something like that. And it was she did not find out until years later that she had something wrong with one of her valves in her heart, and it was uh, by the grace of the gods or whatever, that it never progressed to that state where she probably could have had like a heart attack. So she was very, very fortunate having that condition, that it never physically got to that point. But she was so surprised that I think other people knew about it in the family, but they never told her, and she always wondered why nobody ever told her that that was in her family history, like in her father's bloodline, like that. So yeah, there's a lot of people struggling with physical, and like in your case, the ADHD, that live their lives and go along day after day, and then finally a light opens up, and then all
uh,
the reasons for why what happens to them in life. So, but no, I'm glad that you were finally able to deal with it, like it says, medication, and have all of that brought to light. So to
20s, I had to resort to like substance abuse because I didn't know how else to maintain interest in anything or
mhm.
genuine pleasure or enjoyment in anything.
Right,
Because
right, right, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and probably having all of that come to light was kind of probably a big weight off your shoulders, so you could probably start to enjoy things more as you started to recover and kind of understand exactly, what was going on. So, and I'm glad that you did, triumph, over all those adversities, because I mean, you've been uh, I mean, I've been going to different film festivals, and you've been writing scripts, left and right, and entering competitions. And Uh, I always see posts about awards for this screenplay of yours and that screenplay of yours, and I mean it's absolutely amazing all the success you've had, and in particular, you won the Best Script Short Award for your script of Sven, and that was at the North Film Festival in New York City and Harlem recently, just about what, 3 weeks ago. That's where we last saw each other. So, could you tell us a little bit about what that story is about and what your motivation was in writing that story?
That's probably the most unconventionally formed story that I have is Sven. So I have, without, trying to get too far off topic. So it's like I got 7 scripts out there, and then there's they're all they were all originally features, and then Sven is so short that it qualifies as a short in some festival circuits, but or some festivals on the circuit, but it's technically a feature. But it's
Okay.
the North they categorized it as a short because it's the current draft is 45 pages, which
Okay.
people that's like a long short. It's like, well, because this isn't a conventional story with conventional characters, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of um, sections of the script with no dialogue, and so that's why it's so short. There's one character who speaks and another that doesn't, and there's a lot of monologuing, and so there's
Okay.
not a lot of room for and there's not a lot of back and forth. There's not a lot of banter, which is kind of what fills up the space in a lot of feature screenplays. There's a lot of
Right, right, right.
so on surface level it looks like a short, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
when I started Sven was not a script at first. It was an internet series that I had started. I probably I mean probably peak uh, college. Like it was I think I was 21 when I started. It was and it was for MySpace. It was like nobody was up. That's how far back it was. So it's like 2008. I started these unscripted shorts called Spin, and it was a kind of like it. I didn't really see it like this at the time, but it was more of like a tribute. When it started, it was more of like a tribute to like David Lynch. It was more Lynchian than anything. It was
Okay.
very it was very niche and just bizarre, but genuinely weird. Uh, it wasn't trying to be crazy. I didn't know. Plus, I never know what I'm doing, so that kind of helps when it's just kind of it's. I don't overthink it, and
Right,
so
right, right.
all I all I knew when I started it was I had no money, and I couldn't, I didn't have the money to hire anybody or have special effects or have a crew. So I was the crew. And then
Okay.
my friend Brandon, who I've been friends with since 6th grade, he and I've been friends for about 25 years. He played Sven, and it was just, I put him in a business suit with a necktie and a monkey mask and these gloves, these like monkey hand. It was just like right out of the Spirit Halloween stuff.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Originally got it.
Uh-huh.
So it was very like very artsy, but not overly pretentious. There's still, there was a lot of atmosphere to it. I did all the music. I
Oh,
composed all the
really?
music.
Wow.
The 2 shorts that I did are online now. They weren't online for years. I had them kind of hidden, and then because I just didn't know what to do with them. And now they have their own website because it's all it comes in it like it all connects to the script that I have that's currently winning because I know I'm all over the place, but that's why I was like this. Sven is like the one I have that is not it was not conventionally conceived. It started as an unscripted short that cost like no money to make, except I destroyed my apartment making it.
Oh.
Um, a lot of and stuff, and at the time, and yeah, and there's no dialogue in the first episode. The second episode there is, and
Uh-huh,
um,
uh-huh.
so like when I started, and I think I abandoned it for a couple of reasons, but one of them was that it didn't feel right to make a series. I just kind of like this should just be a movie. It's all building up to something that you would see in a movie, and I
Mhm.
just don't. and I didn't have the time or the money to do it. And I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, and
Okay.
so I just kind of abandoned it. But I like filmed a lot of scenes that I didn't edit, and so I actually just started looking at those earlier this year. And I'm like, I might just get around to actually putting that third and fourth episode together that I didn't finish. That would have all been part. So anyway, the script that I wrote is it's it's like the first 10 15 pages are like the first episodes that I shot, and then
Okay.
there's midsection and then the third act. and
Hmm.
and so like the objective is to get this feature and then start shopping this feature script and start shopping it. But it's kind of evolved from less of like a Lynchian like sort of homage, and it's more of like a throwback to Universal Studios monsters. So that's just kind of what I sell it as
Okay.
now. I think because it's a subgenre of like Universal Studios monsters is a subgenre that won't die, and they keep trying to reheat it. But I'm like, I think you need some fresh monsters, and
Yeah, you can only use the same monsters over and over again just so many times, right? Yeah.
so this is my objective with Sun as far
Uh-huh.
as like a how to sell it, because it is a contemporary monster that today's generations could identify with more, and there's still a level of there's still a level of intellect there, and there's a lot to identify with. There's a lot to relate to with this character, and so it's
Yeah.
essentially Sten is about this. It's the script is about this being called a Shilamaznin. It's a humanoid primate from the Amazon rainforest, and it's the last of its species, and it's abducted by our military. There's a mid story in there that I keep very murky purposely until the end, and there's a big reveal at the end. But the U.S. government and military abduct him, and they put him in this habitat for experimentation. See psychologically what this this specimen is capable of, and so then they put a deeply disturbed man in his mid 20s who's drug addicted and psychotic, and then it's this really on the surface who's the monster, who's really the monster sort of thing, and like, but it's at times disturbing, at times funny, almost all times horrific.
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
There's
you probably have enough of a combination of like seriousness and a little humor just to keep it interesting and move the story along, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to always be like completely serious or want to have a monster that was always completely humorous, because that would defeat the purpose of having a monster being scary. But so uh, you feel
my
that,
brand of dark
yeah.
because there's dark comedy in all of my stuff. It's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
yeah. I can't take it too seriously, but it's got to be a little deeper than something that's just you know that's just lowbrow, or there's got to be like a real story there.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. So these episodes that you have, so all of these episodes are leading up to the goal of having it as a feature then, right?
Yeah, but when I started the series 15 years ago, and I only did it for that year, I didn't have an ending. I just knew that it would lead up. Or I had sort of a vague idea for an ending, but it wasn't the big picture.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
it took 2 more years of me doing other things, writing other scripts, and then I circled back around to it,
Hmm.
and then wrote it when I was in LA for a couple of months, and that was in 2012. The first draft of the Sven script
Okay.
was uh, was written. It was the first draft, and then I didn't really do anything with it for about 9 years, and then I
Wow.
went back and then revised it to a professional level back in 2021, and then on and off in 2022, and then that's the draft. It was I wrote the first draft 10 years ago, and then revised it into something, just made it a lot brisker of a read, but it's a slightly different story so that it could rightfully compete as a new script, and not like, oh, something I just pulled out of a drawer and just dust it off. And because I did a lot more than just dust it off.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, to keep it fresh. So, well, really, having those as episodes really kept the door open for you, like you were saying. Uh, like with episodes, there really isn't or wasn't a
It was always,
conclusion. A
yeah, it was always,
conclusion.
yeah, it was always something I could always think about. It was like unfinished business. It still
Right,
is, because now it's just kind of like, well, now it needs to be a feature film, but it's
right.
like, how big is it going to be? And it's like, well, I'm searching for someone who sees it as big as I do.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
as getting movies made isn't my top priority. It's getting them made correctly, and
Right.
that they have an opportunity to be financially lucrative. I'm not really interested. If it's a movie that's just going to get made and it's not going to make money, then I don't care. I'm just not
Mm-hmm,
interested.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I know deep down everybody kind of wishes they could do that, but I've been doing this for so long, and I've already attempted directing a movie, and that I starred in that didn't get finished. It was a brutal experience. I think I told you about it probably, and then
Yes.
I was talking about it, and then I was going to show you a trailer, and then we didn't get. But I could send you a link later for that.
Oh, sure,
Uh,
sure.
so I've already done all that, and then that was my me taking a crack at going mainstream,
Okay.
and could have had I finished it, but for many reasons, it's quite a saga actually, that I'll probably talk about more in depth another time. Like it was such a learning experience. I just kind of know what I'm looking for and not looking for in getting these movies. And it's sort of like, if I can't get them made they don't have to be this exact way or perfect or something unrealistic, but they have to be achievably, big enough in scope that I'm satisfied with it, or else I'm going to go do something else. Because
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it has to fit the goal that you originally envisioned for yourself. If it starts wandering this way and that way, yeah, you never get anything done. But as long as you have like a general idea of where you want everything to go, then you can keep everything in line with what ideas you have in your head to get to your focus. But I, I think it's a good thing that I mean up until now it's been an episodic because it's like there's uh, um, there's more ammunition for your imagination because you can keep thinking up of like new episodes, new storylines, and then I guess probably when you feel that you've exhausted all the different avenues to explore for the different episodes to come out, I guess then and only then uh, you'll want to bring it to a conclusion as a feature, right? I mean, after you've exhausted thinking about all the different episodic stories that the possibilities, that's probably when you decide, well, it's time for the feature to bring everything home, to an end.
well, yeah. So it's kind of inadvertently those shorts that I did that have survived all this time. There's two of them that are completed, and that's it. I'm not. I'm. If it's like I'm gonna maybe take footage that I shot 15 years ago and edit
Okay.
it into the third chapter, just because why not? If I have the time, then I'll do it. And it would be kind of cool to see. And I also, because I star in the third one, and some of my early acting, it's fine considering I was not professionally trained,
Okay.
but like yeah, so there's those inadvertently those serve as like like if I'm shopping the script, that gives a visual representation of what it looked like on a small scale, and
Hmm.
there's definitely an identity. Like, it has its own identity, and it has a tone, and it has atmosphere. There's obviously a vision is there,
Hmm.
and like, well, if I had a $10 million budget, what could I do with this concept? And
Right, right, right. Yeah. As do all of us wish that we had a ten million dollar budget to do whatever well we set out to do. Yeah. But
having having to prove that, though, is kind of what the journey is. Because I'm not gonna. co-finance it because I did that already and it wasn't worth it.
Mhm.
As I had the right backers, and so like here, it's I also want to star in it. I want to be one of the two main characters in it. So it's going to be it's an uphill battle, but it can be done.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and there's a different script I have that I'm not trying to get off topic, but like that's what I'm more focused on than spend, because I understand spend is going to be a little harder, because even though and $10 million, that's actually pretty low compared to the other ones.
I
The
was
other
just going to,
scripts,
yeah, I was just going to say $10 million is like is like the low end of the game. It might sound like a huge amount of money, but no, it is, yeah, towards the lower end. Yeah.
and I'm like I've been looking at the box office every day for about 25 years. So I look at those numbers and kind of what's in, what's not, what always fascinated by what tanks, what's sleeper hit, etc. And so it's like the advantage, the upper hand I have with all my scripts though is that they're genre hype. So it's like anyone who's not too pessimistic could see that, well, there's a lot of different angles you could sell these at. It doesn't just have to be, from a serious side. Dark comedy doesn't sell if you're just trying to sell dark comedy. But if
Hmm.
you're trying to sell a horror film, when well, horror is really big. As long as you're not too cynical with the approach of how to sell horror, it's very profitable. It's the most. I mean, it's the most admired, I think, business model right now is
Oh
how
yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Horror is big. Yeah. Horror is big at the box office. So, you know,
it's the right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and they don't cost a whole lot of money, and you don't need star power. So I got that going for me because nobody knows who I am. So
right, right. Well, I mean, you keep making movies and keep making scripts like this. I mean, eventually they will. I mean, eventually word'll get around. Like I said, you've been winning awards for your with your scripts for all these different film festivals. So, um, well, like they always say, it might not happen overnight, but over time, give it time. Give it time to get you to have your name being spread around for people to get used to seeing your name attached to different scripts, different storylines, different film festivals. So yeah, yeah, that's the same thing for all of us. You just keep plugging at it, and hopefully we'd all like to think that someday we can reach like a different level. But yeah, yeah.
to go out, the awards, like are cool, but like it's really about who you network with, and then
Hmm.
impression you make, and then you never like we I think we both admitted like you never know who you're going to meet when you go out to the festivals, and
You really don't. I know, just like one festival that I attended. Um, I went into the screening venue, and so I just got into the venue, and I was standing at the doorway and hadn't taken my seat yet. And so, I felt a tap on my shoulder, and it was someone who I had met like months and months before. It was like at another film festival. And, it's like you turn around, you look at each other, and it's like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Well, I'm screening this here. And how about you? Well, I've got this short or this documentary or feature that I'm filming here. So, yeah, it's, uh, it's a really close network, right? I mean, a lot of people think like the entertainment business is like really like spread out, but in reality, it's really like a small tight knit community, right?
I mean, at least on the independent film festival, circuit, yeah, run into quite a few people numerous times, and kind of reestablishes whatever rapport I have with them, and
Right, right, right. Well, just like this year, we've met each other a couple times already. I mean, Barcelona, and then most recently, New York City, the North Film Festival down there. So, yeah, yeah, it's uh, it's uh, it's quite frequent to run into somebody that because it seems like sometimes you're all your objective is like screening sort of like at the same main festivals. I mean, like the more frequent festivals, the North Film Festivals, Love and Hope, and the North Film Festival again in New York City, which is the sort
the North Film Festival. We all that those are all three of the ones we met.
yeah, both in well, for the first time in Stockholm, and then, like I said, most recently down in New York. So yeah, I know. Like I was saying, your films have been making, different film festivals and winning awards, and staying on the same subject of Sven, along with a couple others that you have. It won. It was in the November edition of the monthly awards at the Vegas Movie Awards, and I seen you post about that. Your script of Sven, and then you also have a couple other works of yours, Donovan Emery and Android, the Android and himself, winning Best Screenwriter / Feature of the Year. So. Yeah, talk a little bit about those other two, Donovan Emery and the Android and himself. That that title, Android and himself, that kind of intrigued me. So I mean, I want to know more about that too.
Title. It's Donovan Emery, the Android, and himself is one title, and so it's a long one. Yeah, but it's actually a modern day adaptation of the picture Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde.
Okay.
And I was actually approached to do that back in 2012 after I'd wrapped directing, about a year after I'd wrapped directing on my feature, and that I did in 2011. And somebody approached me from that I had met through the sound engineer on my movie, and he asked me to write it. And of course, it was like for nothing up front, but I'd never been asked to write anything before, and that was interesting. Because I wasn't a big reader at that point in my life. I was when I was younger. Like I didn't even know who Oscar Wilde was. But I was still. I just knew it was like English literature, and then I read the book front to back in about 48 hours, and I was like, yeah, I can do it.
Right.
So the picture of Dorian Gray, and the story of privilege and people desperate to maintain their youth, and this painting doesn't age, or this guy doesn't age because of this painting that another man who's infatuated with him did. And I was like, well, I could just take that idea and replace the painting with an android.
Right.
This new level of sci-fi horror and borderline body horror, I opt out the painting for an android that is like a exact replica of that person, but as the
Okay.
years ages into more of a Mary Shelley's Frankenstein situation. Yeah. And then it's pretty, and when that person is internally kind of corrupt and bad, and they have a polluted conscience, and but it's not taking shape or form on their physical appearance, then that's what the android does. And it's so that was when I don't know, when I put it didn't take long to come up with that after I read the original book. And so that's what it is though. And so out of all the scripts I have, that one is probably the one I'm most proud of, because it's the hardest I've ever worked on a script, because it required me to read somebody else's work, respect their vision, do thing with what they started, and but still try to satisfy everybody in a sense.
Right.
And
So you read those works and sort of find like your own twist on the story to make your own story, right? I mean that. So would it be safe to say that like your motivation for writing, like especially with the Android, would your be safe to say that your motivation came from like reading Oscar Wilde and getting your motivation from that?
no, I mean, like no, I mean, like as I was asked to adapt it into something. And so it was like, just read the book and then do a modern day adaptation of it. I wasn't directed to do like an Android story or even anything science fiction. I
Uh-huh.
wanted to do, and um, I do love science fiction. I'm a much bigger fan of horror, but it was the sci-fi horror element is what I realized I could do something because it is more it is more of a I interpreted it more as a horror novel than as a drama
Uh-huh.
or it's it's got that social satire to it and I nothing entertains me more than social satire. I like satire
Hmm.
because yeah, I feel like I have a lot of opinions on where contemporary is not and
Yeah.
how to translate that into something with my own voice. And actually, the reason I'd say I'm most proud of Donovan Emery. That's the first script I ever wrote where that's the script that helped me find my voice as a writer. It
Oh,
helped me
okay.
find a new level of confidence that I didn't know I had, and I was not no longer consumed with writing things that only I thought I could direct. I started writing things that it's okay if someone else directs it. Now you can
Right.
make it as you want, whether you have the money to make it or, and like Donovan Emery, the if on paper it's kind of obvious. I mean, it would require a hefty price tag. It would be more like a 80 to $100 million movie because
Oh.
it is dystopian sci-fi spectacle. It is big in scope. It has
Hmm.
idea.
Hmm.
Uh, it's more gothic than cyberpunk. It is
Uh-huh.
really it would the visual world. There would be a whole lot that would have to go into the visual world
Hmm.
and interpretation of how that world functions.
Yeah. Well, especially the fact that you have the Android character in there, that's probably that what would boost the budget farther up than if it wasn't about an Android, right? I mean, with all the technology and all of those
But
facets of the filmmaking process, that's probably what would raise up the price, right? Just the fact that you
depends
have
on
to.
who movie because if you go back and like look at a movie like Ex Machina, which is in 2015, I don't know if you saw that, but like that's an A24 movie. That's not a $100 million movie at all. It's but it looks so real.
Yeah.
It looks and it's there are ways of portraying it subtle in a way that's subtle and is not extremely expensive. But I think um, the reason I would say, hey, like heads up, it's going to be like that much, is because I would really aim to have certain A-listers involved, and I think there are a number of A-listers who would really take to the material, and not just because they're English literature Oscar Wilde fans, just because there's a lot to work with there, and there's a lot of room for actors to act and
Hmm.
actually show off their range. I like writing stuff that usually is dialogue heavy because I'm thinking about what the actors get to work with, and
Hmm.
I want actors stuff to work with.
Right.
And
Well, going back to what you were saying a while ago, talking about scripts, you were saying like like the short scripts. You were saying that some of them don't have too much dialogue. So, like the shorter scripts that you've written, um, is most of the script like screen directions? Is that why is that what takes up like the majority of those pages of the short scripts where you said that there's not that much dialogue? Is it all like set directions or scene directions or actor directions?
I learned to not be so technical. That's one of the biggest criticisms I would get, is that I was too technical, and so I removed a lot of those things so that the average or casual reader could read it and understand what they're reading. And
Okay.
it doesn't have to be this, because again, I'm not planning on directing any of these, but
Mhm.
that's not I won't direct any of them. I'm just that wasn't the plan when I really when I wrote them. I was like, what if I just remove myself as wanting to be in it and remove myself as wanting to direct it and just
Mhm.
tell original story? And because it took me a moment to get out of that phase of imagining a story where I'm not the main character.
Okay.
Uh, it took a while.
Uh-huh.
That was, I think a lot of that was subconscious. I want to act really bad. And
Hmm.
that was and I think after I got to do that finally, after I got to act in the movie I directed, the feature I directed in 2011, then, that kind of relieved me of that to where it was
Hmm.
possible to write stories that don't involve me. And,
Well,
and
I mean that that kind of if you don't have to worry about or uh, be concerned with like the acting or the directing, that kind of frees you up in your creative process in the script writing. So the way that I see it, you can write a script, complete it, hand it in, have somebody direct it or act it, and you can keep your creative juices going, and you can go on to the next script, right? I mean that's uh basically your passion, right? Is like creating and script writing.
wrote Donovan Emery, though, there was no place for me in it. And
Oh,
that's and because I was taking the framework of someone else's story, and I was like, if I have to be honest, there's no room for there's for at least there's three main characters in it. The whole story revolves basically around three characters, and I can't see me playing any of them. So um, they're all, even though they're all males, I just still, there's no, yeah. And I think that's kind of what made me comfortable. Like, it's okay if you're not, right. And it's you think
right,
that
right,
I
right.
have, or if I wanted to act and I can't get acting work, well, that's not a big deal because I can just write my own roles anyway.
That's right. That's right. You can write yourself into the script. Yeah, that's no problem. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So when you start to write like a new script and you get the story idea in your head and you're thinking of characters and the interaction between the characters, do you always start writing a script, whether it would be for a feature or whether it would be for a short? Do you start out writing that script with an idea? Well, if I would be interested in being in this film, I think I'll put a character in, but then I can always take them out if their storyline isn't like or if their presence isn't crucial to the storyline. Do you ever think about that in the back of your head or?
No, I just start writing. I have no, I think someone asked me a few weeks ago at a Q&A about like what my process is. And I was like, I don't really have a process. I'm so unorganized. And I've seen so many movies that you just kind of know, you just understand what the point of the three-act structure is, when
Right, right.
it's
Yeah.
okay to break away from that, when it's okay to take risks. And I don't obsess over risks that I take. I just take them. And
You've
so I
got,
don't,
yeah,
yeah, and I don't go, oh, this is very risky. But I'm gonna do. No, I just write the story, and I don't dwell on what I just wrote.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
right in, I don't come in with a message. The message comes later. I'll figure out whatever the hell the message is, if there is one. Um, and there usually is. There's enough going on to where I expect the audience to be smart enough to be able to figure that out on their own.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh.
I think, and so like, but I don't really have like a process. I just start writing, and then
Mhm.
I don't think about interchangeable characters.
Right,
I
right.
characters. I think they all have a purpose. They have to be there they have to be have such little time in there for me to just go, yeah, I can just cut that character out. It's not something that really gets suggested that much or criticized that much, I guess, even though I've had a lot of criticisms because I've submitted to them so many festivals. So you get a lot of negative feedback and positive feedback, and some of it like it's all conflicting, and so I just kind of have to take, I cherry pick from there. But I don't
Yeah.
have I don't have like, but yeah, I don't just because I'm so unorganized when I write it, and the first draft's not going to be perfect. Nobody's just really, but you can always go back and kind of tweak things. And that's usually what I do. I don't have, there's, sometimes I add scenes, but very rarely do I just remove a scene. I'm more likely to add a scene than like remove anything because
Mhm.
that because I don't follow a formula or like anything that's formulaic and you expect this character or like, you know, sometimes like for one script of mine, like one character comes in, at the very beginning of the second act and they're prominently in the movie for the rest of the movie. Like, I'll get these criticisms that that character comes in too late. And they should come in at the beginning, and there should be the A plot and the B plot going back and forth. And I'm like, no, 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 let's just make the A plot all Act One, and then B will be like the first, the first third of Act Two, and then the A and B plot come, and then they meet at the end. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's a matter of preference at that point. And I think the reason a lot of most of the positive criticism I've gotten is that because they're so unconventional, the stories and the characters, you
Uh-huh.
can't predict what's going to happen and what the point of it all is. But then by the time it's all said and done, you know what the point of it is, and it was a fun ride getting there.
Well, that's the main thing right there. I mean, you've got to have fun and enjoy with what you do. You have, whatever you have a passion for, acting, directing, writing, whatever. Yeah, having fun is the main thing. Yeah. And going back to you were saying about not exactly having a writing process. I know I've always heard that, when you start writing is to just put out there, or if you want to say, throw everything on the wall, and like whatever doesn't stick, you can always take it off. But it's like, write a dictionary, and you can always, like you were saying, trim it down. It's better to have too much than not enough, and have parts missing that you have to add in later. And I guess that's mostly the way it goes, is that write down everything that you feel like writing, and like you were saying, you can always trim it and take some away if need be. But that
Yeah,
that reminds me, for both the film festivals in Stockholm and the one in Barcelona this past September. Did you ever take Scott Simpson's film writing workshops?
I think I did I think yeah, and not in Barcelona, in Stockholm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
They're,
thought that was
they're
pretty.
yeah, yeah, they're very good. I took I took the first workshop in Stockholm, and it's like there's so much good information. And I says, well, I might have missed some information, so I took it again in Barcelona when he had it at the Cinema Aquarella there on the stage. And it's like I listened to it a second time, and there was bits and pieces that I missed, like the first time around. And looking at the different diagrams that he had, like to follow. He had bridge diagrams, how to bridge from one thing to the other in the story. I mean, it was very good. Yeah, I was just wondering if you listened in on those. Yeah.
No, there's no one correct way to do
Oh,
anything. And so someone can always have some good suggestions that could make the whole experience or process easier, or yeah, less stressful. People always ask about, writer's block, and I don't really get writer's block. That is one benefit of being like ADD, ADHD, is that your mind's all over the place, kind of, and so you don't really get right. I don't really get it. Usually, if I can't think of something, I'm losing interest. That's
oh,
usually.
okay.
But if it's something that was like a paid gig or something, well, then I don't think I'd get. Probably not. I don't typically get it. So it's one of those, like, well, I don't have pointers for that, because yeah, I hear pointers all the time for it. But I'm sure it's a strict schedule, proper diet sort of thing. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's like you were saying with the ADHD. Uh, that sounds like that's one advantage of it, because it seems to
yeah,
me like you have like all this myriad of ideas all over the place, and it seems like it would be a great place. Like if you see all these ideas in front of you, like you can kind of like pick and choose which ones that you want to use. I mean, if they're all out there all the time, I think that's a great advantage, especially being a screenwriter.
no, the problem is, like, you got ideas, you have so many ideas, they're constantly incoming, you have them all day, every day, but it's about organizing them and
Oh,
executing and that's the hard part of it. That's the disadvantage of it, is finding that strategy to execute. Because I'm like, I know this is a good idea, and this is a good idea, this is a good idea, and like if I could just execute that to where it's presentable or it is digestible for anybody, then then I'm winning, I guess. But
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know, like we were talking about, you have so many ideas and so many ideas for your like short films and eventually like the feature film. And it kind of occurred to me with like with all the awards that you've been winning and all the scripts that you've been writing. Um, you were mentioning about writing versus directing versus acting. So like like in the near or distant future, do you envision that you'll just like totally concentrate to do the screenwriting and just focus on that only? I mean, eventually.
no, because I'm tired of it. I'm tired. Um, I'm like, you got to pay me to do that because I don't want to do it.
No, I
And
know. No, I
give me
know it.
give me a reason to care about it again, because
Right.
I've done it. And it's hard not to, like, I'm just being real, because I've written 9 features. By the way, I don't write short screenplays. I approach every screenplay with, okay, this is going to be a feature. It might be a little short, it might be a little too long, but I attempt to write a feature every time. And so
Okay.
I've written 9 at this point, 9 feature screenplays, never been paid for any of them, and I'm like, that's enough. That's more than enough. And it's
Right,
like,
right, right.
I,
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got enough screenplays. How would you say? You got enough screenplays like in the bullpen, not to add any for a while, right? I mean, you've got enough to work with for now, right?
aim was, it was about taking 5 of those 9 and really focusing on them and reworking them till they're really great, and that it becomes not necessarily almost unanimous praise, but that it's people, even people who don't like them, are like, it's not my thing but it's good, or it's well written. It's not my thing but it is well written.
Uh-huh.
And kind of, where it's just like, okay, so it's a matter of, and now, so when all 5 of them get selected, or when it started, now there's 7 of them out there, but when there was just the 5, Sten was one of them, Donovan Emery was one of them. It was about, a lot of them would get, all 5 of them would get selected, but only maybe 1 or 2 of them would win an award. And then maybe only one of them would, and then whichever ones didn't win would win in a different one, and those other ones that won wouldn't win. So it became a matter of preferences. It was obvious. They're all good, and it's just a matter of who likes what over the other. And
Right.
and so there's a little something for everybody who likes a genre hybrid, or something that is, none of them are family friendly. That's the only downside to them.
Yeah.
Is But that doesn't mean I can't do that. It's just I'm not compelled to just yet. If there's a reason for me to want to do it later, then maybe. But like screenwriting is like, unless there's going to be some compensation, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of it.
Hmm.
I want to get into acting, and so I'm using the screenplays and the recognition I'm getting as a way for me to get back in, but as an actor, and even if that means being cast in one of those, like really getting one of those off the ground to get
Oh,
me,
okay.
and so be it. I'll do it that way.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that's a good plan. Then your name is already spread out there, and people are familiar with it already. Yeah. 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 Well, like you were saying before, it's like horror is well, as everybody knows, yeah, horror is very popular. Science fiction is very popular. I've always been like a science fiction fan. Uh, you know, the ubiquitous Star Trek. The Trekkie. I mean, I'll confess. I'm a Trekkie. Maybe not as diehard as a lot of them, but I mean, I've read my share of Star Trek books, soft cover books, and all. The movies. Star Wars. I've always liked Star Wars and all those storylines. So yeah, it's like no wonder that your scripts are accepted like that, because they tap into the interest that a lot of people lot of people have, either with horror, science fiction part, like in one of your films there with the android. So you've tapped into that, and yeah, yeah, I mean, you've just done great things and everything, and I'd really like to thank you for being on my show today, Jesse. I mean, it got me a chance to know you better, and I'm sure everybody else is was very interested to learn more about you. Those of them who've seen our on the fly interview back in from Stockholm, they just got a little bit of taste of who Jesse Dorian is, and hopefully now they become a little bit more familiar, or hopefully a lot more familiar with you and your work, and how you got into it, what you're doing now, what your visions are for the future. So yeah, I thank you very much for being on my show today.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and for graciously accepting my invitation. I've really been looking forward to this since our On the Fly, and then when we were talking there at the North Film Festival down in New York City, it's like we were talking together, and it's like, yeah, we really should do, Zoom, the Zoom thing, the talk show, and it's like, yeah, you know, yeah, I'd love to have you on, and here we are. So. Yeah, so I wish nothing for you but the best in your career. All my best wishes for your success, continued success. And I know that we're going to run into each other at some other film festival somewhere. So that's guaranteed, because it seems like it's sort of like we're on sort of like the same pattern. So yeah, so and who knows, another film festival, wherever, whenever that may be, we can do another On the Fly, like as an update to the original On the Fly in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on my show, and everyone. My name is Edward S. Redcar, the host of Edward S. Redcar's Entertainer Chat. Today, I've had the extreme pleasure of talking with Jesse Dorian, filmmaker, writer, actor, producer, director, vocalist, and all things. We've come to know all things Jesse today. Only a small part, but we'll find out more about him on an on the fly interview somewhere. So I wish everybody out there to have a good day and take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.